Alpine Touch. Hi, I'm Shotgun Tom Kelly. This is the second episode of the Alpine Touch. We're going to talk about Alpine's activities from 1986 to 1990. Some say this was the most crucial time for Alpine's brand building and growth. It was also the time frame for one of Alpine's major consumer promotions, Car Audio Nationals, and Alpine's Gate Project was born. Back with me right now is former Alpine Executive Vice President David Black and his former Vice President of Technical Development, Rich Coe. Dave and Rich were a part of the original team who introduced Alpine electronics to America. I love your stories so far, and I know you got some more. Now let's dive into the Car Audio Nationals. What an off-the-grid idea that was. I loved it.
There were beginnings of car competitions that were going on back in 1985 anyway. And the problem that Rich and I were challenged with was that we were doing very well selling head units. That was no problem. That was the sexy thing to do, for crying out loud, sell really great head units. But we had a problem because we needed to do other things, didn't we?
Yeah, there was a lot more than just the radio and the dash. Car Audio Nationals really started out with George Reed in Texas. He was doing these crank 'em up contests, is what he called them. And it was basically where you bring a car in and you turn up the woofers as loud as they'll go, and if yours is the loudest, you win. We come from a background of high fidelity. That was our target the entire time, was to have the best high fidelity in a mobile environment. I always had the desire to hear music in the car the way I heard it live on stage. Because that was actually the best. If you ask me third row center, no. Between the organ player and drummer. Mm-hmm. That was the best place for me to stand to hear audio. Anyway, so we decided, rather than to just roll over to this like we had done in other functions that had been brought up during the industry, that we would get tough and fight back. I got together with my people and Mike Silber and some of the other folks that were working in our groups, and we talked about having a competition. But the competition had to be built around these things. The highest score went to the car that had the best high fidelity.
Right.
The highest score went to the car that didn't need to be adjusted between tests. The highest score went to the car that could put out the most SPL without remixing it. And we limited it to 140 dB because that was actually an area where above that you can start causing ear damage. So we were still paying attention to our customers. And so we decided to put together a judging book. And my staff and myself, we wrote the book on how to score these events. And as a matter of fact, I was in Singapore and I had to sign 9 cases of those books. I actually wrote my name so many times I couldn't write my name anymore. It was very popular. We were the first ones in the industry to actually set standards and then follow them.
Now, one of the standards, it had to be ergonomically correct. I mean, it had to look like it was stock.
Well, based on scoring, the highest score went to the car that looked like what the factory would have made it look like.
Right.
You're actually able to make a car look better than its stock fashion. The highest score went to the car with the best real-time analysis or the best slope without peaks and valleys in it. The highest score went to the car that had the best imaging. Imaging across the stage is you have right stage, left stage, and center.
Center stage, yeah.
What we would do with our judges is when they judged a car, they would change seats. The judges would sit on passenger and driver side, and then they'd switch sides and listen to it again. We used the very high technology equipment that we took with us that had software programs written so there was no argument as to what it was. So we came up with a system which was very difficult to attack. When we did Car Audio Nationals, the biggest thing I got from that was this data that came back that was all recorded on the audio analyzer, which was, I think, a $30,000 or $40,000 piece of equipment. And I learned how they listen to music differently in different parts of the country. They listen differently in the Northeast than they do in the central North US. They listen to much different in Florida and Texas than they do in the guys in Seattle. California is kind of a mix, different things and stuff, but you see that it's all over the place and it's seeking its way. All of this is seeking its way to where it is something that everybody can enjoy. And it's going to be driven by technology in the future. All of these guys, regardless of who they were or the genres and everything that they came from, they all still have this thing in the back of their mind as to what is the best sounding audio system that can be made for the car. There's as much difference between individuals out there as there are between the cars. And then we did one other thing that was very smart. We came up with a protection for the event. That was the Muscular Dystrophy Association.
That's right. Well,
you remember at that time that there was legislation going around the country to try and make it so that car stereos that were too loud could be written tickets. Who's going to attack these cars when the money goes to Jerry's kids?
Today, the finals of the Car Audio Nationals were held, a competition that since last spring has raised $300,000 to help fight muscular dystrophy.
how do we raise money for muscular dystrophy? It was through the entry fees. Am I right?
They were all donated.
Car Audio Nationals, where we're raising money for muscular dystrophy. Yeah, we got over 100 cars involved, and it's going to be really a good time. We got all kinds of spectator events. We got the dead radio throw, which you take an old dead radio and you try to toss it into a trash can, and of course that money goes to muscular dystrophy.
Truly what it's all about, Jerry's kids and the fight against muscular dystrophy.
That's right. And
That's
you
right.
donated those entry
dealer
fees
promos.
Right.
on the telethon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
2 years in a row, I think.
2 years in a row.
Now it's my pleasure to tell you that MDA family has another new member, Alpine Electronics of America. Here representing Alpine and its independent dealer network is Robert Hash from Carston Stereo in Danbury, Connecticut, Gary Lawson from Century Stereo in San Jose, and David Welsh from David Stereo in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Also with us is Alpine's Vice President for Technical Development, Rich Coe, and its Vice President of Marketing, David Black. Okay, you are?
I'm David Black.
Hi, David.
This is Rich Coe.
Rich Coe. Hi, Rich. Okay, yes, David.
Ed, on behalf of Alpine Electronics of America and its specialty dealer network across the country, we are proud as heck to be involved with the MDA this year. And as long as Jerry and his kids need Alpine support, we intend to be there. So I look at this year's commitment as basically an installment.
Right.
And this year, the Alpine dealers and Alpine Electronics is proud to announce that we have fundraisers better than $300,000 for the fight
Terrific.
against
Let's
muscular
hear
dystrophy.
that, friends. $300,000. All right. I will accept that from Mr. Lewis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the family.
Thank you
I'm
very
glad to
much.
have you aboard. Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay.
We had a venue for Car Audio Nationals, and my job was to make appointments during the week to get on radio and television shows and come in a couple of days before and talk about Car Audio Nationals. So that's where Don Bledsoe and Dave...
the MDA. And the MDA.
And that's true, the MDA. That was another hook, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Bledsoe was great, and of course I had been doing the Muscular Dystrophy Telethon
Forever.
well, that, you know,
Gosh.
yeah, for that time, 34 years.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Los Angeles, worked with Casey Kasem and Jerry Lewis for about 15 years.
There was a funny story.
There was we always love funny
A funny
stories.
story about Bledsoe that I learned while we were doing this thing, and like you said, he was the absolute draw when it came.
You were the one that brought him in. That was wise.
I'm not going to take any credit for that, but I did. Okay.
Yeah.
But what happened was just amazing. Not only did you guys go to the PSA route with the MDA and everything,
Right.
which was good, but he stayed on that talk show after the PSA time
Yes.
and was answering call-ins because
Yes.
everybody wanted to talk to a car thief. That was
Hey,
pretty
we
cool.
were on KGO in San Francisco for an hour on that show. The calls just kept coming in.
It happened all the time. So I was talking with Bledsoe towards the end there, and he says, "Yeah, we went over to the police department." I said, "What for? Your police department?" He said, "Well, that's part of the deal because during the radio show, they learned that I was a car thief, and one of the guys at the police department said, we're about ready to change our watches." And, there's always a half an hour discussion in the police department about what to look for and what not to look for. And oh, by the way, we've got a guest speaker this time. It's a guy named Don Bledsoe, and he's been in jail for 15 years for automotive theft. Mm-hmm. Really? And of course, Don says what happened is I get up there and all these young cops and everything are doing their thing. And they're thinking, I don't want to listen to this son of a gun, you know, yeah. And Don had this thing, these car theft tools in a bag that he took with him.
Yes,
everywhere.
he did. I've seen those.
And he said, well, I know you guys don't think I think I'm a rat, you know, and everything all over, but let me just help you out. He opens up this doggone toolkit, and there is the weirdest looking stuff in there you'd never seen before in your life. There was 1 or 2 young cops that were there, and they'd always raise their hand after seeing this thing, and they says, wait a minute, I saw one of those things in a car I pulled over the other night. And the other guy says, yeah, me too. And Don looked up to him and said, those were car thief toys. This is what I used when I was stealing cars. And all of a sudden, they engaged. All of these guys were engaged, and Don was a sharp dude.
Oh, he was.
He was
worked
really
for
smart.
GMAC.
He knew exactly what was going on, but the big one was this. He'd ask a question to one of these kids, or even to the guys that had been around for a while. He says, so, where do you think I stole most of my cars? And he's waiting for an answer, and hands come up. He said, well, yeah, I stole most of them and was under a light post someplace at night. That was best. Don says, I'd never touch any of those cars. Are you kidding me? And they said, why? And he says, well, that was too easy. That was really easy. He said, give me another challenge. The other challenge was, the guy raised his hand and he said, I love to steal cars behind gates in an apartment.
Wow.
And I went, and the guy says, well, no, wait a minute, that gate's closed. It keeps you not able to access the apartment, right? The guy says, yeah, but it also keeps you cops out. And he picked up a can of oil. And he said, do you know what this is? Used under the right circumstances here, and the right circumstances is a slick floor, concrete slick floor. If I pour this oil on the floor, I can move a 911 Carrera with my index finger. You're not going to be able to do that outside on a rough surface, but inside of a surface like an apartment building where you've got a real slick surface, it's easy to do. And he says, how many times have you seen a Porsche Carrera sitting on the back of a flatbed with the alarm going on and off? That car I just stole. I just put it on the back of my flatbed and then took off.
He was amazing.
And he was right on about that stuff.
He was, yeah.
And getting in and understanding the thief side of the deal, very interesting, because he, even on camera when he was doing the the Cardio Nationals things, he never ever said Alpine's the best security system. You know what he said? It's just a deterrent.
Yeah.
And it's the best deterrent that he's seen.
Yeah.
An alarm is going to give you, if nothing else, time. The more somebody has to spend there, the better chance they are getting caught, and thieves know that. So basically, they don't really mess around with cars with alarms on them.
Well, I remember when Dave hired me, he said, you know, Kel, I want you to be familiar with all our products. So he put a whole system in my van. It must have been 2,000 watts. I know I had 4 power amplifiers.
He probably designed it.
Yeah, 4 power amplifiers, 4 subwoofers, tweeters, I mean, center stage, as you were talking about. And I still, I drove that around San Diego to different radio and television stations. I blew everybody's mind.
Yeah.
And you know, today, they're still talking about that van. They really are.
Guys, we could not get the Japanese to understand how the Americans listen to music. We had an objective, we got to sell more amplifiers, we had an objective to sell more speakers, we got an objective to do all this stuff, but we couldn't figure out a way of communicating to the engineers over there that were working in those 2 categories to actually meet comp with what we did. So, with Car Audio Nationals, guess what happens? We say, come on over. And we had those Japanese engineers that were responsible for the speakers and the amplifiers listen to the cars that were winning in the first year of Car Audio Nationals. Because the cars that were winning in the first year of Car Audio Nationals weren't our product. So all of a sudden, these other competitors who did it right, as far as the American ear was concerned, they were the ones walking away with the big awards. And I know Rich will back this up. The first time those guys came over here and had a chance to see who was actually winning, this is a vote for how Americans listen to music, they went, I get it. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I get it. Because they're very, very tuned into high frequency dropping water.
Right.
And what do we do in this country?
Base.
Man, give me a cannon.
Right,
All right,
right,
put it
right.
in my rear deck and I'm happy. Our responsibility to be able to grow those new categories required a completely different approach to the Japanese. We couldn't just get on an airplane and run over there and say, hey, do this. They needed to see it, and since they're so competitive, business is war to the Japanese. That's how they look at it. They are so competitive. If we put the right elements out there, they go fight. And we did that. We were able to finally convince these guys of what was really happening. And I think Alpine today has a line of product in there that was really a part of Car Audio Nationals. It's called their F1 series, I believe.
F1 status.
F1 status. And those products are there exclusively as a result of Car Audio Nationals.
There were other competitions besides Car Audio Nationals.
Most of the other competitions were just based on dB. They had a thing called dB drags. You'd bring your car up, you would make it as loud as you could make it. They'd measure it, that was your score. They had cars up there that were over 170 dB. I mean, that's like sticking your ear to the exhaust of a jet engine.
Wow.
And I saw people, in fact, I was concerned because I saw people that would stick their head in the door of a van and their hair is flying in the air from the bass moving it around.
Yep.
And that kind of amplitude that you're experiencing for yourself, you can have permanent hearing losses that occur from that.
Absolutely.
We stayed away from that. We wanted to stay on the safe side. So we could tell people they could put the mic in the car and they can measure, but you don't climb in the car with the microphone and sit there and subject yourself to SPLs. I watched Bernie Boland over in Arizona. He was playing something, I think it was from the Digital Domain, a helicopter track. And it was thump, 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 sitting in a van. And pretty soon I heard the sound shut off and I thought, did he blow it? So I went over there. No, Bernie was sick. He had to get out of the van. He had vertigo.
Yeah.
Wow.
From the SPL that he subjected himself to. He had to go home.
You know, I got to tell you, I had so much fun at Car Audio Nationals. We had T-shirts with, it looked like if you look at the T-shirts, they looked like a car race, that was going on. They were very classy T-shirts. To this day, those 2 years that you hired me, Dave, I learned more and had more fun than I can think about.
You helped make it work.
Great.
You helped make it work, Mr. Kelly.
You know, whose ever idea that was, yours or yours, Car Audio Nationals was really it.
What made it big for Alpine is that how we executed it.
Right.
Because Rich is right on as far as I want this sound to sound like it did when I was on stage.
Right.
That is the kind of thing we're looking for. We're not looking for all these things that are basically potentially harmful.
Now, if somebody told me, I think it was you, Rich,
You
told me that what causes hearing loss is distortion. And if you had the right system, you didn't have any distortion. Is that right?
Yeah, although not just distortion. If you have too much sound pressure level, you can damage your ears.
Is that right?
And there's a curve that's called the equal loudness contour curve. And it's the hearing response shape of the human ear. And we studied that. In fact, we had the guy that wrote the ANSI ISO standards for the House Institute on how people hear come out and give us a presentation on it. He said there are some people that can use a jackhammer all their life, they don't lose a decibel. There's people work in offices and they have hearing losses.
Yeah.
So it depends on the individual and it depends on how the individual uses their sound system. But in Car Audio Nationals, we did judge other areas. In other words, how clean was your wiring laid out?
That's exactly right.
We had one of our competitors, Richie and Ferreira from Boston, Massachusetts, lost to Roger Haldaway by 0.1 point.
Wow.
A tenth of a point. And the reason was because Richie thought his wiring was so beautiful that it should show.
You know, Car Audio Nationals was a 13-city, I think, tour. And then at the very end, we had the national.
The dealers did events at their own stores.
Oh, they did?
Oh, there were
originally.
hundreds of events.
So we had probably, over the course of time, there could have been 200 events.
Oh, okay.
300 events. I mean, we had 600 dealers.
Yes.
But they all didn't participate. And what
Right.
happened is once a event at a store had concluded, the dealer took the top car and put it
That's how-
into
okay,
the
okay.
quarterfinals, and then they competed within a region.
Right.
All right, and then after that, it was the nationals back in
Which
San
was
Diego.
held at SeaWorld, but ours was at SeaWorld San Diego.
Please welcome San Diego TV and radio personality, the voice of Alpine, Shotgun Tom Kelly.
Hey! All right, baby! You better believe it! I'd like to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to the nationwide final competition of Car Audio Nationals. And of course, we all know it's sponsored by Alpine Electronics of America, Alpine's independent specialty dealers, along with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. All right, I could dig it. You know, now all of us here at Car Audio Nationals feel the consumer is the most important part of any competition. And that's why, for this reason, the competitors in the pro category have decided to pass the big bozo elephant prizes on to the consumer contestants. So they'll just get a trophy. Isn't that beautiful? Now let me tell you what those big prizes are. Numero uno, the first place winners will each receive a $25,000 grand prize, the Beast. The Beast is a Jeep Comanche 4x4 loaded with a complete off-road package, including roll bar, fog lamps, custom front and rear bumpers, a winch. It's got a radical car audio system inside.
We're getting down tonight. We're running an Alpine ADS sound system totaling 1,740 watts.
I want to say I'm very pleased with the quality of the show that Alpine has put on with Cardio Nationals. Quality is superb.
Up in Wichita, Omaha, Minneapolis, St. Paul, across the USA. The man on the street, moving to the beat, everywhere you hear him say.
I have Alpine head units, Alpine crossovers, Alpine equalizers, and Boston acoustic speakers in my system. And I'm here in San Diego to have a really good time.
We're going out tonight. I know baby so big. Yes, I'm in outside.
Everybody knows in first place, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for James Garner.
Yes, I'm in outside. Ooh, red ball setting, yeah. We're getting down tonight.
Tomorrow morning, between 7 and 7:15, because of what has happened with the Alpine specialty dealers and certainly all of you, we will be going on TV and awarding a check in support of the Muscular Dystrophy Association for $300,000 from Car Audio Nationals to Jerry Lewis.
I live in a city, yeah. I'm in love with the lights. Ooh, red bottle city, yeah. We're getting down.
And I think to a large degree, these competitions did something great for us, that's for sure, but it was like, tossing sand in Superman's face. Because you know who picked up on this stuff as far as really, really quality audio? The OEMs.
Yes.
They went out and heard this stuff and they went, oh my gosh, people want great sound in their vehicles.
There's a lot of OEM systems
And
that sound really
everything
good now.
changed.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like, oh my gosh, what have we done to ourselves here?
Well, the cars that are out there, the brand new car, has what I had in my, almost what I had, not exactly the power that I had in my van, but there's some very good, cars out there.
Well, today,
Yeah,
they're
right.
awesome. I
Today,
mean, that's
yeah.
what's happening. I mean, you take a look at what's happening throughout the course of the aftermarket versus OEM, and there's technically, there's hard to get a radio in some of these new cars because everything's integrated as far as the the dashboard is concerned, but the speakers and the amplifiers are not. That's still a aftermarket sensitive type of product.
So is my Lexus OEM
Yes.
with the Mark Levinson surround sound or something like that?
No, that's a licensing issue.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's it.
You guys knew that guy.
Of course. I worked at Macintosh for a couple of years too.
Right.
And you see the Macintosh branded radios and Jeeps and stuff like that. That happens, Macintosh doesn't have an engineering group that can actually manufacture a 12-volt item. They had to outsource that. So it's the Macintosh brand. It's signed off by the Macintosh engineers, absolutely. But it has to be built by somebody else. And I'm not going to tell you who it is. But it
Well,
starts with an
there's
A.
a lot of good sounding OEM systems out
right.
there, but the areas that OEM doesn't go is they don't go after large woofers, and they typically don't go after very expensive tweeters and mid ranges. They are price driven.
But,
So there's
Ray,
still opportunities.
But you have mentioned this to me the other day on the A pillar and B pillar in the front end of a car.
Right.
Nobody looked at that space like he did.
Right.
Because the Car Audio National says, you know what, you could put tweeters where they belong, at ear level on the pillar posts.
Well, speaking about Car Audio Nationals, they had a tremendous impact with the GATE program.
I was teaching the dealers how to use fiberglass for building and constructing custom enclosures, and I was in Dusseldorf working with the Germans. I showed them a picture of where somebody had cut a hole in a kick panel to put a speaker in. German guy raised his hand, and he says, in German car, if you cut the metal, you can't insure the car.
Really?
So he said, so what do we do? That turned on the light in my head, and I said, so don't cut the metal. Build fiberglass that goes onto it and install that in the car, your own custom speakers. And I said, now, what differentiates you and the volume dealer out there? Your custom work
Change
is
the
what
world.
differentiates you.
Just changed the world for the independent specialists.
Any out of the ordinary actions with tech support? It seemed to run like a separate group.
Well, we were kind of a separate group. And as a matter of fact, we were lucky that Alpine allowed us to be as crazy as we were, because when we were doing cars for the shows, we'd be out there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in the installation bay working on a car, wrestling with one another on the floor.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of fun with one another.
Yeah.
And we generated a lot of good things. I remember that the company would give me a car each year. I remember I had the blue K5 Blazer.
Yeah.
Beautiful machine. I took the fuel tank out from under it, put a pair of 15s under the back of the car, and put saddle tanks under the side. So I could have subwoofers you can't see, but make really deep bass.
Wow.
What would happen is I'd get those cars done, and then at the end of the year, the company would come back and say, we want our car back.
When I was in my car that you guys decked out for me, my van, the sound was so clean and so pure that you could feel your hair move. At least I thought.
That's that deep bass.
Is that what it is?
That's it.
Yeah, that's that deep bass.
That's it.
What happened to Car Audio Nationals after its 2-year run?
We had enough funding through the success of that project to continue it on. But I'll tell you, it was an absolute drain to the organization.
Yeah.
His department was crippled, really crippled. And they had a new area that they were looking at with the whole GATE project. So we had to make a decision. What are we going to do here? We're going to continue to do this, or are we going to try to maybe sell the Car Audio Nationals thought process and everything to somebody else?
Yeah.
So we went to IASCA and we talked to them, and they were willing to talk about it, but they didn't want to pay us anything for it.
It merged.
We talked to a few others, and finally we said, okay, we're not going to try to sell it. We'll just go ahead and merge it to the best one out there. And basically that's what ended up happening. It was just molded into that.
It's gone back. It's kind of backslid a bit. They're doing the SPL thing more.
That's
than
right.
anything anymore.
But we were not involved at that point anymore. So if they wanted to redo the whole, and they don't call it Car Audio Nationals anyway. So
no, it's
they can do
IASCA.
anything they want to. But,
So
they're
still
adopting
out there.
the rules and regs that his
That
team
he
did.
Yeah.
It's
A
called
lot
the
of those
International
were appeared.
International Auto Sound Challenge Association. That's
Right.
what it's called.
And that's
now.
is that going today?
Yeah, that's still around.
But
there's all kinds of different
Re-
promotions that are
Rich
happening.
is, you talked about it earlier. They've changed the objective. Now it's more of an SPL type of objective, and that's okay if that's what they want to do. We're just not endorsing, or we wouldn't have endorsed anything like that.
However, there's an opportunity if there's a company in this industry now that wants to go back to hi-fi. Nobody's really doing that. High fidelity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's really going out and pursuing the finest sound that you can create. And that's something that I would hope to see Alpine do now, because they need to differentiate from the other brands.
Right.
The best way for them to do it is to support the dealers on the application side,
Right.
make the products that are easier to use and come out with the best sound quality, and then go out and support it in the field.
Wow.
So there's still a lot of opportunity out there.
Next up on our final episode, we're going to be covering 1990 to 1994 and how Alpine pivots from a big national meeting format for dealer owners to motivating the dealer installers themselves and beyond. The Alpine Touch.